men shall utterly fall. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. I was just looking up at some of the verses above that. It would do us well to read this chapter. Anyway, God add a rich blessing to the reading of His Word.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And happy Sabbath. It's great to be here together, to see everybody once again in the sanctuary. How many of you are excited to be back?
Amen.
And every morning we're praying that as we can, start coming together, the Lord protects us. The Lord continues to be with each of our families. And, right now I'm just processing everything because, pretty soon I'll be transitioning to a new district. And one of the challenges of moving is, the relationships that you build here. You kind of start new and build new relationships. And there's going to be great opportunities, but I know that I will miss you guys. Every place is unique. Every family, every person has a picture that helps paint the greater picture of what heaven's going to be like. So I look forward to heaven. This morning, as I was, well, not this morning, but this couple of weeks, as I was thinking about what should I speak about, I kept thinking about running the race. Maybe because I went back to the gym. They had me running. But no, there was a connection there. There's a story of two gas company employees who were out reading meters. One day when they started talking about how good a physical condition they were in. One of them bragged and said, I used to be on the track team and I used to win a lot of the competitions. The other one claimed to be one too. So they decided that after they checked the meter, that both of them were going to run to the end of the street. So after they finished the meter, reading the meter, both of them darted for the race. It was a pretty long race. And when they got there, you can just imagine that they were out of breath. Their hands on their knees, trying to breathe. It wasn't like it used to be when they were younger. You know that feeling? And they looked around, and what they saw was there were 3 other guys with them. They were surprised. You can imagine they were waiting to get their breath, and one of them finally caught his breath and said, "Why are you guys running with us?" One of them replied, "When you see 2 gas employees running away from the house, the only safe thing to do is to run with them." This morning we're going to be talking about running a race, but it's a different one, like a different kind of race, one that we're not running away from, but running towards. Let's pray. Dearly Father, I thank you so much for this Sabbath and the opportunity that we get to worship you freely and open our hearts to you. And Lord, as we come to you, I just pray that you continue to give us peace, give us wisdom, discernment, to be able to study your scriptures and to take what we learned today and apply them in our lives so that we can be prepared for when you come. And Lord, I know this message is clearly for me, and I hope it's a blessing for those that hear. May you decode it in a way for others to understand the message that you bring us today. In Jesus' name, amen. The race we'll be talking about is found in Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 to 3. If you have your Bibles, You can open your Bibles to Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 and 3. You may have a different translation. I'm going to be reading from the NASB version. When you have it, say amen.
Amen.
And it says, therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us lay aside every encumbrance and the sin which so easily entangle us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes on who? On Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. If you read Hebrews, you would notice what comes before Hebrews chapter 12 in chapter 11. Hebrews chapter 11 mentions a lot of giants, faith giants. And just to name some, they mention Enoch, Noah, Abraham, Sarah, Rahab, just to name a few. And for this reason, because they had just talked about these giants, the author of Hebrews says that we're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. But what does that mean, to be surrounded by witnesses? Does it mean that people are looking down from you in heaven and saying, go, hooray? You know, the people who died before us? There are some Christians that do believe that. But the verse is actually telling us that they are not people that look down on us. Rather, they're examples of those that we can look back to in history for encouragement. Sometimes we need encouragement, right? And the word for witness in Greek is martos, which means one who affirms or attests. A witness shares something they have seen or experienced. And throughout the Bible, we see their witness of what they have attested to and what have they learned. They bared witness to God's faithfulness to his faithful. Isn't that awesome? As such, they offer great encouragement to Christians who are struggling to endure faith. The author is saying, now that you've read in chapter 11 about these people who have witnessed God's faithfulness, now you too can run the race. How many of you like running races? Some do, some don't. Used to. I know it can be very tiring. It can be very difficult. But in chapter 12, Paul, the author of Hebrews, because there's discussion on that, I'll say Paul writes to encourage us in chapter 11 to help us to take a look at those giants who have gone before us. Do you think it was easy for them to run the race? I know it wasn't easy for Abraham. The Lord, if you remember the story of Abraham, the Lord told Abraham, I want you to go. Abraham was like, where? To a land I'll show you. God didn't even announce where yet. It was like God was saying, I want you to go and I'll show you on the way. How many of you would, if God would call you to leave now to a different place, you would get up and leave? Run? Yeah. All right, some run. I know for some it would be very difficult to just get up and leave, because one of the questions that comes up is, where am I going? The other question that may come up is, do I have a job ready for me? If you're still kind of in the working phase. Other questions will be, are there any schools for my children? And it keeps going and going and going. Another question that people ask is, do I know people there? Oh, there's orchards? Where's that? Have you heard of that? Post Falls? Is that Coeur d'Alene? Abraham walked by faith, and he took everything that he had and he went. He wasn't scared of the unknown or the unanswered questions because he knew God and trusted in God's word. You know, it's not easy moving from place to place. But when you learn to trust in God, God will bless you. And that's one of the unique things. Being a pastor, you guys know it's almost like somebody in the military. They pick up and move from place to place. And it's because God calls us to. And early on in ministry, I've learned that if we just go, God will take care of the rest. There was once when I just recently got married with my wife. She had left her job. She went to the seminary with me for the last 6 months. And she took some classes while we were there, waiting for me to graduate. Not so long after, we received the call to go to Yakima. And one of the needs that we had was to find a job for her. So that at that time, to help pay off student loans and things like that. She searched. She couldn't find anything that really matched what she wanted to do. There was one in particular that I don't know what I was doing. I just decided one day to say, okay, I'm going to search for jobs for my wife. I was like, I'll give it a try. I only looked like at one or two job listings, and there was one that kind of just came at me, and I felt like, that sounds like my wife, what she does, what she's experienced. And so I gave that reference to her. She contacted them. We didn't hear about anything, so we're just, all right, let's go. We're just going to go. So we went down to Arizona. The reason why we went down to Arizona was to pick her stuff up because we just got married. She left most of her stuff. And on her way from Arizona up to Washington, she gets a phone call. And it was that one place that she applied to. And they wanted her to come in to do an interview because everybody wants to see, how you respond, the type of person you are, etc., etc. And we thought, okay, well, that's not going to happen because if they want an interview, and so she explained to her, that's not going to happen. I thought to myself, maybe God has other plans. And so she told her our situation, and they hung up. Not long after, and we're on the road, they call again and say, we want to set up an interview tomorrow. By then we're in Nevada, and we're still traveling, so we still had another day to go. And we told them the circumstances, and they said, that's okay. We'll interview on the road. So the next day, we get the phone call, we're driving, we pull over, and, she took the interview. And afterwards, I think it was before, they told her that she got the job. And it was so cool because she started the same day I started. And I remember the day, January 7th, 2013. And the reason I remember the day was because of number 7. It's symbolic for completion. And it kind of helped me, encourage me to remember that God will provide our needs. He will complete us. No matter the challenges or needs that we have, if we move forward in faith, He will fulfill our needs. It may not be a comfortable journey when we run the race, but God is there and He will bless us. Now, when we think about this race, if we go to verse 1, notice what the race is about. The race is not about running against other people. For some reason, when we think about the race, we think competition. And so we start looking at other people and saying, okay, what they're doing, are they ahead of me? Are they behind me? And sometimes we can get kind of focused on that. But the race is not about other people. The race is about you and your journey on earth and your relationship with God. And the unique thing about that is that nobody can run the race for you. They can run alongside you, they can encourage you, but nobody can run the race for you. Notice in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1, that it says, let us. If you have your Bibles, let us, meaning that we're a unit, we're a group of people who are running the same race. The race that the people from the Bible ran, they ran it. Now we're picking up the baton, and we're continuing the race. But if it's not against another person, then what is it against? Sin. Because of sin, the race involves pain in the form of persecution at times, shame, and even blood. So because of the pain and the things that we have to endure, how do we run the race? I love Hebrews chapter 12 because in just a few verses, it gives us a glimpse of. It's like it's like the high point of Hebrews. And this is one of those books that we read in our small group prayer time in Otis Orchards, chapter by chapter. And chapter 12 really just got hold of me. Paul tells us that the race, there are 4 things to help us run the race. The first thing, in verse 1, is to lay aside every weight. The second thing, lay aside every sin that encumbers us. The third thing is run the race with what? Patience, endurance. And the fourth, run the race, keeping your eyes on who? On Jesus. I'm going to go through these 4 points quickly. Verse 1 says, since we are surrounded by a cloud of witnesses, let us what? Lay aside every weight. If you want to finish the race, you need to let go of everything that weighs you down. And one of the things about this verse is that Paul makes a distinction between those things that weigh you down in sin. There are things that weigh us down that are not sin. There are things that can take the place of God in our lives that are not sin, but they weigh us down in this world. And everything that gets in the way of running needs to be getting rid of. The Olympics and those Olympic athletes at those times, when they would practice with weights. And when the time came for the race, they would lay aside those races because they didn't want anything to hinder them from running at their full performance. And the author wants us wants to use that because running a race fits exactly what we're doing in our spiritual life, in our spiritual journey. We're running for the goal. And what's the goal? Jesus, heaven, right? And what are some things that sometimes can weigh us down? I'm just kind of throwing different things that come to mind. A job, it's not sin, but it can get in the way when the job takes the place of God in your life. It can hamper the race that you're running in order to run it properly for the Lord. It can weigh you down. And if it weighs you down, the Bible calls us to lay it aside. It doesn't mean that you have to, every time, get rid of the job, stop what you're doing. It means to look at it, evaluate it, and make changes. There are times when you might have to leave a job in order to find a different work that will work with the race that you're running. What about hobbies or sports? They're not a sin. But if we're not aware, they can take the place in our lives. Sometimes hobbies and sports can hamper our race in life. We can watch too much of it. And when it comes